What's up everybody, it's your boy The Hunter Fisher. Welcome back to the Epi Banger video. We're back in the office and today I'm going to explain to you why I will always use this BFS reel over this ultralight spinning reel.
Here we go guys, no fish, first fish today. Good morning, Howard.
Let's get into it. With BFS reels, this is something you've heard on my channel a lot lately. This is a BFS reel, and this is what I would probably call an ultralight spinning reel. This is just a 1500 size Johnny Morris Carbon Light 2.0 reel. There's really a big price difference between these two reels, but I also have another reel that I will show you too. This reel is the Surinoya Dark Wolf Ultra. This is what I would call a budget BFS reel. So if you're worried about price versus spinning, trust me, this is only $15 more. This is an $80 reel from Bass Pro Shops. I used to be a Bass Pro employee. Obviously, I spent a little different prices or whatever, but this reel is just under $100 while it's in America. But if you were to get it from AliExpress, I believe it's a little cheaper, but I honestly support more American-based companies, so I'd rather stick to American-based companies where I buy any of my gear from. It doesn't really matter where it's made, because at the end of the day, all your pieces are made in China. This reel here in America costs just under $100, about 95, 97, I believe. And then this reel right here is $80. I have a few of these BFS reels now, and I've probably got enough kind of experience to talk about why would I use a BFS reel over a spinning reel. First, before we get into it, I gotta tell you guys and explain to you guys how both of these reels cast lures. So both of these reels cast ultralight lures. So this specific reel actually has a shallow spool, and it actually allows essentially line to come off the spool. So with a spinning reel, the way that works is you have your lure tied on, you flip the bail, it will come off the spool as you cast that lure out. What you do, you flip the bail, hold the line, cast out, and you let it go and it flies off into the distance. Now, this reel has been everybody's basic reel. You start out on this reel or you start out on a Zebco, either one doesn't really matter, but this reel has been what everybody and people still use all over the world. A lot of their main fishing equipment. To each their own. I love my spinning reels. There's a reason why I still own them, but I'm going to say if I'm ultralight fishing, especially in freshwater or just near me in general, I ultralight fish in saltwater actually a lot now. I use BFS reels at the time, but I'm pretty much always going to pick this up. To explain how this casts, you click a button and that releases the spool so it can spin freely. I just gave myself a backlash. That's so sick. This reel essentially, once you cast it out, typically the weight of the lure produces the spool to spin and then cast out. But with BFS reels, essentially, you can't rely so much on the weight of the reel, of the lure, as much as you have to rely on the weight of the spool. So an easier way to make the spool spin is by reducing spool weight and making there be less line to now get the whole spool to spin faster and easier. So how it works is you disengage, spool is now free spinning, you let it go, and then as it casts, you use your thumb to reduce the amount of speed it has, and you can accurately gauge how much speed it needs to be going at, and you decide where it lands. So with this, you're a little bit better able to pin this where you want it to be. With this, you're just casting it out and seeing what it can do. Now, a lot of people will tell you that you're going to get more distance out of this reel versus this one. In some occasions, I will say yes, but I've started tuning down my gear so much to where I feel that I can get equivalent distance from 5 to 10 feet off with this reel. If you fine tune your BFS reels, in my honest opinion, you can get very similar distance with very similarly rated lures. I'm eventually going to produce a video where I test this with a 7.6 rod and another 7.6 rod, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I think that this reel can cast the same as this reel. Very close. If anything, if this beats this reel, I will say it's probably going to be 5 to 10 feet. It's not going to be a huge difference, because typically I've noticed with this reel, I've had a lot more control, especially on windy days, which I live in Florida. We have a constant sea breeze, so it's almost impossible to not have a windy day in Florida. It's constant hurricane season, a bunch of different ins and outs and of everything. I think that this reel can come very close in terms of distance casting to the spinning reel. As we've said and explained that, you are also going to be able to use a spinning reel a lot easier than a BFS reel. So a BFS reel does have a steep learning curve. But once you get the hang of it, it's like night and day. It's so much fun, and you learn how to get better at all around bait casters. So whenever you're using any other type of bait caster, it doesn't have to be BFS or anything else besides just a normal bait caster, and you're gonna get better at cast as you learn to use a bait caster you're gonna get better at using BFS reels or BFS reels with bait casters, whatever. Now let's get started with the reason why I'm still going to pick up a BFS reel over a spinning reel. So the first thing I've got to say, especially with in terms of BFS, is I think the obvious factor is accuracy. Now accuracy with the BFS reels, you have more ability to control the velocity of your lure as well as accuracy in placement. So essentially what I'm saying is the biggest factor and pretty much probably the biggest reason why BFS even exists in the United States is because of trout fishing. So in trout fishing, you're not casting as far as you can. You're casting as accurately as you can. And with spinning gear, you lose a little bit of control that you can get, because if you're casting as fast as you can to get right into that one spot that you want, with a spinning reel, it's kind of tough to gauge where you land in terms of location on a stream or location on a lake, because essentially your line is moving freely out from your reel and you cannot control how far or not far it may go. Yes, you can cut the spool, but that still won't reduce the velocity of the lure. So if I'm casting a little trout minnow around and I'm gonna cast it underneath that tree over there, say if I flip my bail, right? If I flip the bail back over to stop the line, that lure, there's still a bunch of line out in front of you that still is coiling up and still flying out of the reel. I might stop that lure just in time, if not right into the tree. With a BFS reel, the arch that is produced from spinning gear and the free floating line does not exist, because with braking systems on BFS reels, you can do a straight line instead of an arch. Spinning gear relies on an arch to get line freely out there. So the velocity of the lure itself is pulling the line out of the reel, and say if you cast and you whip it as hard as you can, all that line's flying out of the reel while you have no control over the spool, while BFS takes your time and you can accurately break down that brush pile, whatever it may be. Accuracy in terms of BFS versus spinning, BFS pretty much will always win if you really get good at placing your cast. The reason why is it's more handheld and you don't need to do all this flipping the bail, casting it right, casting like that. It doesn't matter. With BFS, you learn how to use your bait caster and you get comfortable with using the braking system and learning how not to cast incredibly hard to get your lure even there in the first place. The velocity of your lures will be much more controlled into where you can place your cast exactly where you want it. But that also comes with a skill gap that I will definitely preface that factor with. BFS is better if you know how to use it. You know what I'm saying? So another point that I also want to make with that is, like I said before, with spinning, you have an arch of that line being carried up by wind, being carried up by whatever, while BFS, you have more of a straight shot if you control the speed of the spool and the speed of the lure through the air, or velocity of the lure through the air. Now, number two, for what I'm going to talk about, is line twist. Line twist, that is probably the biggest problem with spinning gear. So what is line twist and how does it happen on a spinning reel? So to explain it, the way that factor, this right here is the drag for a spinning reel. So the whole point of drag on a spinning reel is essentially, and it lets line out of the reel. Biggest issue that people have is they try to reel against drag. As it's coming out of the reel, they keep trying to reel it back in, and you can hear the drag going nuts and you're still trying to reel it back in. The biggest number one cause of line twist is that right there. So if you're pulling this drag out and now you're trying to also reel back in, it's going to start hitting this spool roller right here, and this roller is going to keep rolling, and now your line's going to do this right here as you're going against it. So now your line's going to start twisting and twisting and twisting, and when you're talking about factors such as braid will always produce a twist. No matter what braid you use, you can use 8x strand braid or whatever, you can use 13 strand braid, you can use 4 strand braid, it's always going to do that. Now the issue is as much as you can stop yourself from reeling, it's still going to do it at some point during the use of a spinning reel, and it's almost impossible to prevent otherwise. But I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be completely impossible to solve. You can do things to alleviate line twist by letting your line out, laying it out in a field, letting it go. But the point is there's factors to a spinning reel and how the line management system works that produce an issue, especially in terms of stream fishing. So a lot of guys, they're fighting trout and they're letting them pull drag. The reason why is trout are very fragile fish and they need to be given drag so that you can still keep them hooked on with treble hooks, single inline hooks, doesn't matter, barbless hooks even. But that's the whole point, is you need to be careful with your drag. And if you're letting drag get pulled that whole time and you're producing line twist, the next probably cast or the next cast after that, when you try to whip it as hard as you can, that line twist is going to come out of the reel, produce a coil, and then knot up. It's going to produce wind knots, and it's almost impossible to use a spinning reel and not see wind knots. But With that said, it's almost impossible to use a bait caster and not have a backlash. As much as I want to say that I've never backlashed in my life, I've backlashed a lot. I backlash every time I go out. I backlash probably a dozen times every time I go out, especially recently because I've been just trying to test new things. But the point is line twist is apparent in spinning reels, and it does affect how the line comes off the spool. If you have line twist in a BFS reel, it does not matter because the whole point is it's still going to come off the same way in a much more managed way. So the line management system of a bait caster is a lot better than a spinning reel if you especially know how to use the reel appropriately and take your time. Because the minute you try to whip a cast after line twist, you're done. You just lost like 10 yards of line. With this, you're gonna backlash, but a backlash isn't as big of a deal as line twist because line twist produces all the way down your spool versus with a bait caster, it's only right there and it's gone. Besides that point, we're gonna move on to number 3. And number 3, the reason why I will choose a bait caster over a spinning reel is because of weight. Now, why does weight matter? Because we're getting older. Everybody's getting older. You're always going to get old. I'm unfortunately getting older. Actually, I turned 23 here in the next 2 weeks, and I can't tell you, I am learning of new aches and pains in my body every single day. Now, this isn't a huge reason why I'm going to pick bait casters over spinning. I know that I'm still young, obviously. I will tell you, this reel right here weighs 6.9 ounces. You can go check it out on the Bass Pro website, and this reel right here weighs 4.9 ounces. You can check that out on BaitFinesseEmpire.com. That is 2 whole ounces difference right here. So when you're holding this all day and you're holding this all day, you're gonna start figuring out very quickly that there is a difference in the weight of your setup. So on average, a bait casting setup will weigh 2 to 3 ounces less than any spinning setup that's equivalent, especially in terms of price or usage. So if I'm using a saltwater setup, typically if I'm using an equivalent bait casting setup, it's going to be lighter, and it's also going to have less wear and tear on my body over time. I don't know about you guys, but I plan on using fishing gear my entire life. I'm about to be 23 right now. I might use it until I'm 100. So the point of this factor is I don't want to give my body any more reasons to wear and tear easier and prevent me from fishing all the way until I'm 100 years old. My point is you're gonna be a lot less tired and a lot less spending, you're gonna spend a lot less effort to cast a bait casting reel versus a spinning reel. So that's just bait casting versus spinning in general. Doesn't matter if it's BFS or ultralight, whatever it is. But when you're talking in terms in ultralight, a lot of older guys use ultralight now because they're getting old and they don't want their arthritis kicking in. So they like to use ultralight because it's more comfortable, less of a profile to worry about. But with BFS, you are even going more downsizing and you're losing more weight on your setup. So that's really cool. I'm not a salesman for BFS, but that's pretty cool. All right, number 4, why I'm going to pick a BFS reel over an ultralight reel is efficiency. Now, if you guys haven't already heard most of the things I've said during this video, efficiency is so important when it comes in terms of ultralight fishing. So say if you're a trout guy, I'm not a trout guy. I live in Florida. The only trout that we got here are sea trout and stock trout. And stock trout, pretty much the only ponds that I know that you can stock trout fish are fly fishing only ponds. One thing in terms of trout fishing, I've never trout fished in my life besides fly fished a couple of times, and I didn't even catch any. I do know this about trout fishing. When you're in a stream fishing scenario, you need to make use of your time in the most appropriate way possible. Make the casts in the right places, make as many casts in the right places, and do that all without spooking the fish. Now, when you're talking about how you cast a spinning reel and how you cast a BFS reel. Number 1, you have to flip the bail over. Number 2, you have to cast. Number 3, you have to flip the bail back over. Now, a lot of you will say, oh, I just start reeling. That's actually horrible for your gears unless the reel specifically says you can do that. There's only one reel that I know of personally that does tell you to do that, and that is the Penn Slammer 4500 models and up. That's a $250 reel. No reel nowadays is made to do that unless you're talking about like another reel like the Shimano Spyrex. And the Shimano Spyrex, you can do that. But if I were to flip the bail over and do this, and I did that 1,000 times in the next month, this reel is going in the garbage. And I can promise you that because the pinion gear mechanism is probably only about 3 or 4 millimeters thick. So you're going to wear away that plastic and it's going to become junk if you keep trying to pop it back in. So the point is you have 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. You have 3 steps behind casting a reel. With a BFS reel, if you want to cast it back, and then you start reeling. So it makes more sense with a BFS reel that you start reeling because 1, the plastic is a lot thicker on these reels, so it won't wear away like I'm making the whole point for on spinning. But the point is it's 1 step cast. It's a 1-step cast. There's no step after besides start reeling, which you're gonna do anyways. This reel you don't have to worry about after 1,000 casts. That clutch breaking off and the pinion gear falling apart, whatever. I will tell you, this takes a lot less time to cast than a spinning reel, and I don't think anyone can debate with me there. Another factor that makes spinning gear a little bit harder to use in terms of casting is you have to use two hands to cast this thing. I cannot try. If I really tried my hardest, it would be really tough. So if I try to use one hand to cast a spinning reel all day, it's gonna suck. I can do a flick like that, but it's gonna take forever for me to get a system down for how to use a spinning reel with one hand. While I have this right here, I can literally click it, cast it, and start reeling like that. I literally can fish a bait caster one-handed. And that is another factor of using bait casting and spinning. If you need to hurry up and get your lure in a spot because you spotted a red fish, a trout, whatever it may be, with the bait caster, it's click and cast. This, it's flick, cast, flick. That's 3 steps versus 2-ish 1 step, really. Is with the bait caster versus spinning reel, you only need one hand, you only need 2 steps, while a spinning gear, you need 2 hands and you need 3 steps. I think in terms of time, I know it's seconds versus milliseconds, but the whole point of it is that you're going to be a much more efficient fisherman if you get into the details of seconds difference. So with a bait caster, I'm going to pick that up because it's faster and more efficient. I can get more cast in per spot, whatever. You know, that's my point. So we're going to now move on towards the last and final factor. This is probably the most important one of them all as to why I'm going to pick up a BFS reel over a spinning reel, and that's for fun. Yeah, I said it. That's the most important factor. Why am I going to pick up a BFS reel over a spinning reel? And it's because it's fun. I'm not saying because I have more fun fishing with a bait caster over a spinning reel. I'm saying I have more fun fishing the way that I want to. Let's get into that and talk about that. One thing that comes with BFS fishing, as you can already tell, is it's a collector's mindset sport. A lot of guys, especially on the BFS fishing Reddit, we all like to collect more than one reel. I think that's anybody who fishes. We always like to have as many different BFS reels that do as many different things as possible. And just like car guys, we like modding our reel. These are not stock handles. These are like extra smooth Gomexus handles. I'm also going to change the bearings on this reel. I'm going to change the bearings on this reel. I'm going to add more magnets on this reel. I'm going to further improve the performance that I have behind these reels because I like having fun. It's not because I'm trying to say, oh, I spent a bunch of money on this reel, I'm so cool. No, I am doing it because I enjoy it. I'm not doing it because, oh, this casts further. I don't care. I enjoy using a BFS reel. So the whole point of why I love BFS fishing is because it's more fun for me. I love when I can cast a 32nd ounce jig on a bait caster because nobody told me I could, and I hear this. That's satisfying. I love going out and fishing for trout and then I hook into a 30-incher and it's just, I love hearing that. That's a lot of fun, and I love saying that I caught it on 6-pound braid or 8-pound braid with a bait caster that casted a 1/10 of an ounce Ned rig, freaking 50 yards or what crazy number, whatever it may be. The whole point is I've always loved trying new stuff and expanding my horizons. Number one factor why I fish BFS is because I like having fun, and I think that you should love having fun too. I used to actually love building PCs, and I loved building PCs the way that I found them fit. I loved using NVIDIA graphics all the time. I loved using AMD processors over Intel processors because everyone is always using Intel processors and AMD processors. They have more cores, they have more fun, their multitasking capabilities much better, especially in terms of an editor. Point is, I loved getting customizable with my PC. Well, I'm loving getting customizable with my BFS reels too. And with spinning gear, you can't necessarily do that except you're replacing a handle. I have a Stratic 2500 FL, and the only thing I could do to it is replace the handle. I could install new bearings, but I need a special tool to take apart the whole sealing system of a spinning reel versus a bait casting reel that is a BFS reel. Whole point is, I enjoy the customizable aspect, I enjoy the fun aspect of using bait casters, and for those who always are hating on my videos in terms of like, just why are you using BFS? You could just use a spinning reel and get double the distance. I don't care. You don't need 60 yards of distance. And if you can cast an 80th ounce spinning reel, an 80th ounce jig on a spinning reel better than my reels can, I would love to see that video because I've tried that and you're crazy if you think that it can do that. I've really tried my hardest. You would have to have like a backwind and then you would have to wait, be very patient and everything. But the most important factor to anything in fishing is going to be the fun factor. You're out there to have fun. That's the whole point of fishing. If you do this competitively, At the end of the day, you started it because you have fun. You didn't start it because you wanted to make money. Because if you're in fishing to make money, I got really bad news for you. You're not gonna make a lot. Like I said, at the core of it, fishing is all about fun, and it doesn't matter the way you fish. We have the biggest problem, especially in the fishing community, with being super toxic. We all judge the way that each other fishes, and I think it's the dumbest thing ever, because at the end of the day, who cares? If he catches a fish on that type of reel and it's not your type of reel, and if he spent his hard-earned money on that reel and you spent your hard-earned money on that reel, who cares? Only thing I would ever tell anybody, and the only thing I will ever complain about somebody to, is I will think, oh, that's overpriced and there's no real good reason to it. But if I try my hardest to find the good reason first, I won't say anything. Because, say for example, I don't like the Corrado BFS. Who cares? Really, I don't care. If you want to buy a Corrado BFS, go ahead. I think it's overpriced because this reel is a lot better for the price, at least, in terms. This is under $100 and it's the exact same as a Corrado BFS and can cast lighter. But there's still people who's gonna buy a Corrado BFS, and I'm gonna say nice fish when they post a picture about it. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. This is all about catching a fish. Do you think the fish check to make sure you're using a Shimano or a Daiwa reel before he bits your lure? No, are you crazy? That's just stupid. Do you think he can even see you? He probably can see you. You got a point there. The whole purpose of what I'm saying here is stop worrying about how specific someone else's gear is. Go buy the gear you want. Go buy the gear you want to fish with. Who cares? I bought a freaking $280 reel. Granted, this reel is like practically on sale right now because of the Japanese yen conversion. I bought this reel because I love fishing like this. I could have used this reel and caught the same freaking fish. In fact, I have. But I still like using this reel because it's a lot of fun and it looks cool. I mean, look at this. And then look at this. Okay, this kind of looks cool too. But the whole point is it doesn't matter what you fish with or what someone else is fishing with. Have fun in the whole point of fishing, and you're going to enjoy it a lot more. Stop worrying about what other people are doing on the water. Start worrying about you. Start worrying about catching fish. Don't make fun of me. Catch fish, then talk to me. How about that? Point is, it's up to you what you choose. It's up to you what you use. But I'm going to stick with BFS because I love it. There's a lot of factors why I'm going to pick up a BFS reel over a spinning reel nowadays, and it's for my own sake. So if you guys are on my videos and you're curious, what else do I think about other stuff? Just let me know down in the comment section below. I'll answer any questions you guys got. If you want any recommendations for BFS gear, I have tons of videos to tell you more about it. So if you guys want to ask me questions, I'll be down in the comment section below. And as usual, guys, always remember, fish for your life.